Hey, Clemson family, the upstart Tigers softball team began its fourth season with a tournament sweep in South Florida. They're expected to make another significant run toward the College World Series this year.
I'm Daniel Shirley. We'll take a look at the Clemson middle linebackers for the football team and also see what happened with the basketball team over the weekend as well.
Getting down to crunch time for the men's basketball squad. I'm Bill Zimmerman. We are glad you found us on the major podcast apps and at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Welcome to episode 63 of the Supreme Alway podcast. We want to be your source for analysis of Clemson sports throughout 2023. Before we get into that softball team, let's go ahead and get started with a couple of linebackers who stood out in 2022 and the other guys who are backing them up at those positions. We'll call them the traditional linebacker spots. Some people call them the Mike and the Will, Mike for the middle, Will for the weak side. And those two emerging forces at those spots were Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the middle and the versatile Barrett Carter, who played on both sides of Jeremiah Trotter. But we'll go ahead and talk about him in this episode. He shined wherever he lined up, laid claim to that weak side spot after filling in there for an injured Trenton Simpson, and managed to keep the job there the rest of the year, even though he had done really well at that Sam spot, more of a hybrid linebacker safety.
Bill, I thought he was the best player on the defense the whole year. He was just terrific throughout the whole season. There were some highlight plays. You can go look at the Clemson social media the past week. They've had some highlights of Barrett out there, but also just solid fundamental play. There weren't big mistakes from him or just kind of wild swings of his play. So really impressed by what he became in this second season and excited about what he could become next year as well.
Yeah, Carter had a lot of promise as a recruit. I remember you were high on him, Daniel, and he has certainly lived up to all the billing as who he can be. Carter led the defense, 832 snaps, had 77 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss with 5.5 sacks.
And he was all over the place. I mean, you think about that Louisville game where he just had big play after big play and just became kind of the focal point of this defense. And that was impressive to me because, I think we kind of went into the season thinking, okay, he needs to step up. But you don't know that these guys are going to automatically do that, even with more playing time, even with more responsibility. Sometimes players just aren't ready for that. But he certainly was ready for that and really kind of stepped into that role and made the most of it.
Easy to think that Carter was the best player on the defense this year. I think there were several guys really who stand out. Be sure to tell us what you think, especially in those comments there on YouTube. We want everyone to be a part of this conversation. We always enjoy seeing your thoughts. Another guy with a claim to best defender on the team would be Trotter. Really took over in the middle. He had shown some glimpses of what he could do during the Cheez-It Bowl at the end of 2021. If you want to nitpick, I might say he needs a little more work in getting leverage. We've talked about that with the defensive linemen, the bigger guys in front of him as well. But Trotter plays like, I don't know, did he grow up around the NFL game or something like that? Well, yes, he did, because his father, Jeremiah Trotter Sr., was really a mainstay in the league for a long time. So Clemson is lucky to have a guy with Trotter Jr.'s instincts. He's got speed, he's got size. He's clearly a force in the middle.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And really, we talk about the step that Barrett Carter took. I think Jeremiah took even a bigger step. And I mean, he kind of became the guy in the middle of that defense. So really impressed by what he has become. Again, another guy you say, man, I can't wait to see what he's going to be next fall with another year in the system, another year with Wes Goodwin as his position coach, and then just see what this group can become. But man, I thought there were 3 or 4 guys on defense who you really could count on. And he was one of those as well. So just really excited about what he's become through his first couple of seasons with this program.
Yeah, it was hard to imagine just what would happen at that true middle linebacker spot with Jamie Skalski moving on, who really was just the cerebral presence for that defense, made a lot of brilliant calls out there, making sure that what Brent Venables wanted was what happened on the field. Obviously, we don't know if Trotter was sort of that extension of Goodwin the way Skalski was for Venables. By the way, Skalski going out to Oklahoma to work for Brent Venables starting this offseason. Trotter, however, like I said, really fabulous out there. 678 snaps. He led the team with 92 tackles. He had 13.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks.
I just was really excited, Bill, because the play was great. The stats are great, but also the fact that he felt like he took on a leadership role in the middle of that lineup, in the middle of that defense. And you need that from that middle linebacker, and especially in this defense, it feels like that linebacker spot is kind of the quarterback of the defense. And we've seen that through the years with different guys who have played in that spot. And Jeremiah really kind of grew into that. It wasn't perfect. Like you said, there probably some times where he could work on his leverage and those kinds of things. But really, with a guy who played the way he played in 2022, we're nitpicking to see what he can improve on to take even a bigger step in 2023. And I think those are two guys that you can be really excited about if you're a Clemson fan.
Well, behind Carter and Trotter in the middle, or the two traditional linebacker spots, if you want to look at it that way, Keith McGuire and Levante Bentley really both played well. I have a lot of regard for both of them. Going to miss both of them next year. McGuire played 256 snaps, had 47 tackles, 3.5 of those for a loss. Bentley played 163 snaps. He had 21 tackles, 3 of them for a loss. McGuire is going to call it a career. Bentley is transferring to Colorado, going to go play for Deion Sanders. So he'll be able to get some attention out there for sure. And you just hope that Bentley's going to do well. You also hope that Clemson's going to find ways to replace those backup snaps.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bentley. There were times last year or 2021 where I thought, man, he could really take the next step and be a starter and really kind of do what Jeremiah Trotter did. But unfortunately, at least for him, Jeremiah Trotter did it in front of him and jumped him in the line a little bit. But hopefully Levante goes to Colorado and plays well. I'll certainly be a big fan of the Colorado defense and seeing what he's able to do, because I thought he gave Clemson a toughness and really played well and played hard when he got on the field. So obviously it didn't work out for him as well as far as being the starter, but you certainly cheer for a guy who plays that hard and gives your defense a toughness like that.
Like I said, the next episode, we'll get into how Trenton Simpson, Wade Wood, as some of the guys did at that other outside spot, at the Sam spot. Between episodes, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Clemson Kickoff. We'll make sure that any news around the program surfaces on those feeds. Let's go ahead and get into the softball season that is underway. We had a preview all set up and lost it due to some technical issues, so we are just now getting into breaking down the softball team. They made it to the Super Regionals in just their third year. Clearly, this season they are expected back both by outsiders and by John Rittman. If you haven't seen his preseason speech that was posted as a video on social media, be sure you check that out. He knows this team's progression is clear. They're a consensus preseason top 10 team. D1 softball has them at 9th. The remaining 3 polls have them at 10th. And they have started out 5-0, winning a tournament at Florida International University.
And really, Bill, they looked like the team you thought they would be. I mean, the pitching has been strong so far in all 5 of those games. And the offense has really been dynamic and outstanding, hitting a lot of home runs, getting a lot of people on base. They had 19 hits in the one game to set a program record. So really good start to the season. I know they will play on Tuesday against Furman. So excited to see what that turns into. And then this weekend, they will be at home for their first home games in the Big Ten ACC Challenge against Ohio State and Northwestern. So I love what this program has added to the athletic department. It gives Clemson another kind of a championship program, as we've seen some teams win championships the last few years, and really excited to see what they become this year, what if they can take that next step and go to the College World Series.
Well, the Bats sure came alive and looked like they can power the Tigers out there to Oklahoma City. Carolyn Jacobson hit .563 with 3 home runs down in Miami at Florida International University. Valerie Cagle hit a couple of home runs and was at .647 batting average. Mackenzie Clark also a couple of homers and a .706 batting average. The pitching was outstanding as well. Cagle led the way. She really is this team's heart and soul early on in the program. 16 innings pitched, no earned runs, 2 unearned runs, 16 Ks. Millie Thompson also won a pair of games. Brooke McCubbin got the other win.
that pitching staff, especially those top two, are as good as anybody in the country. And we saw that last year when Millie kind of stepped into that second role and really gave this team a boost because they were kind of searching for that second pitcher. And then we saw it early this season as well in these first 5 games. So the depth there with the pitching staff is terrific. The depth on offense as well. Like you said, a lot of bats there, and they're getting it done so far. They've already hit 9 home runs through the first 5 games. 5 players have hit home runs already. So just shows you what kind of depth this team has in the lineup and in the pitching staff.
Tigers are picked third in the ACC as a preseason ranking behind FSU and Virginia Tech. They've got several all-ACC players. Cagle is a pitcher and utility player. Mackenzie Clark as an outfielder. Aleolo Galeo as an infielder. And then Millie Thompson ranks in a pair of polls as the number 19 pitcher in the country. Plenty of talent stacked up on this roster. Some new players doing well as the familiar faces were last year. And they return to the Diamond on Tuesday for a road game at Furman. Check out our homepage, clemsonkickoff.com. You can see our archive of past episodes. You can see the football schedule there for 2023, including the spring game date. Let's go ahead and get into men's basketball to close out this episode. Tigers failed to take advantage of a midweek break. They went to Chapel Hill Saturday and fell flat. It's kind of the only way you can put it. I was eager to see them do well against North Carolina. Thought they had a chance for a win there. Just didn't work out.
Bill, this looked like a lot of Clemson trips to Chapel Hill. There was no life in the team, which was really surprising after having a week off. But they didn't play well. They didn't play defense at all. This was a North Carolina team that has a lot of weapons, but had not really shot the ball well. But they got a lot of open shots against Clemson. And then Clemson's offense just could not get going for the most part against a team that really struggles defensively. So I don't think anybody was shocked that Clemson went to North Carolina and lost. I think we've seen that enough times to expect it. But just really disappointing performance by the team on Saturday. And now you're looking at a 3-game losing streak with Florida State coming to town on Wednesday and then a trip to Louisville on Saturday. And I know Brad Brownell kind of described it as one bad week, but I think it's more than that. And I don't know that this team can get things turned around to become an NCAA tournament team. I know that might sound a little silly considering they're only a half game out of first in the ACC. But if you look at the metrics, right now, this is barely a tournament team by a lot of the bracketologists and the predictions and those things. So they're getting dinged by their non-conference schedule, which they should. It was really bad. One of the worst in the country, if not the worst in the top 6 conferences. And then they also had a couple of bad losses. The loss to Boston College, the loss to South Carolina, the loss to Loyola Chicago. So those are going to really hurt them if they don't get things back on track pretty quickly.
91-71 was that final at Chapel Hill. P.J. Hall led the way with 18 points, Chase Hunter 15, Brevin Galloway with 10. Those were the only 3 guys in double figures for scoring for the game. Hunter Tyson and Ian Shefflin with 7 rebounds apiece leading the way on the boards. Just got to have a broader performance than that to beat a team like North Carolina. And they're going to need to find that peak form to be able to beat the Seminoles, who almost beat the Tigers down in Tallahassee, if not for a terrific last-minute play at the end to seal the victory for the Tigers.
That was probably the best moment of the season for Clemson. I mean, it's certainly the most exciting win. I don't know that Florida State is a very good team this year, which is surprising considering what they have become as a program. But that was a really exciting win. Felt like a big win, a big moment. But this team really has not played well the last couple of weeks. And hopefully they can get things turned around, get back on track, get enough conference wins here to get into the NCAA tournament and then see what happens. But Bill, I feel like if they are at 13-7 in conference play, if that's what they are, I just don't know that that's going to be good enough to get them in the tournament. And they still have to go to Virginia. They still have to go to NC State. I know they beat NC State early in the season, but NC State's playing much better. So it just feels like this team might need to, win all these home games and then somehow squeak out a couple of games in the ACC tournament if it's going to go to the NCAA tournament.
We will see what the Tigers can put together down their stretch run going into the ACC tournament. We'll keep you posted on that. We will also preview baseball coming up soon, and we will get into that extra linebacker spot in our next episode as well. Until then, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.